I'm Sam, and this is Cooking Cuban. La primera cosa que tenemos es encuentro de pollo. Kicking it off with arroz con pollo, also known as chicken and rice. What you see here is chicken thigh seasoned with sazón completo, also known as complete seasoning. If you do not have this, you can season it with garlic, salt, pepper, and anything else you see useful. Here we have the pearl rice. That is a very important part since we are talking about chicken and rice. So you just saw the chicken, now you see the rice. Onion, you want to use a full onion for this recipe. A little bit of cooking wine, the white one. And here we have peas, as you can see, tender sweet peas. And next to the tender sweet peas, what you see is the whole red, what are those again in English? Ajíes. Peppers, and they're pickled. Next to it, you have sofrito, which can be replaced with sauteed onions, red, yellow, green pepper, and garlic. This is the chicken bouillon tablets, which you will need for, well, chicken broth. Now my grandma's chopping an onion. Pelando la cebolla. Y hoy estamos cocinando por cuánta gente? Como 10.
Ajá.
Siempre como 10, más o menos. Porque los sábados son
De
comer.
De comer.
Mira, yo estoy llamándole porque yo que...
You are going to want to chop an entire onion, dice it up into squares, and, well, that's what my grandma's doing here. Chopping up the onion, and you're going to put it into a pan containing the sofrito, which is that red stuff you see, and my grandma chopping an onion. Oop, it slid right back.
Viste que entró en uno.
Sí. Te entró.
Y yo te llamo el lunes.
Me corté.
Ah,
No importa.
cuidado.
Con el cuchillo ese.
Uh-oh, Grandma cut her finger, but she has a quick fix for it.
Tú mira.
She says that's better than a Band-Aid. The rest of the onion is going into the cauldron with the sofrito in it. And we are now going to saute all this together.
Poquito. Ay, no te puse aceite español. Aceite español.
Está bien.
Dilo en tú si quieres hablar.
Sí, yo lo hago. We're going to put olive oil in there so it sautés real nice. My grandma was worried because she forgot to put the olive oil next to the rest of the ingredients. I think we're good, right? So you want to do it on high until it sautés. The onions are nice and soft and everything is yummy. Yep. There we are, sautéing it up. That's the sofrito. We're going to put more in that now. Y ahora vamos a echar más.
Exacto. Una lata es suficiente, pero bueno, como voy bastante.
Since it's a lot of people we're cooking for, about 10 today, we're throwing an extra can of sofrito in there so that we can make sure we get the chicken really well seasoned once it is time to do so. So, just saute it up, people.
Esto es para limpiar un poquito la lata.
Para que le sale todo lo bueno.
Exacto.
Ah.
De todas maneras que echarle eso, yo lo aprovecho.
What you saw was my grandma pouring a little bit of the cooking wine into the sofrito can so to take out all the goodness from the can. So that's one of her secrets. I suggest you follow them because, trust me, this stuff tastes delicious. Now what you see are the 2 chicken bouillon tablets that we're going to boil into this pot of water so that we can get enough chicken broth to cook this entire giant bowl of arroz con pollo. So we put that on high until it comes to a boil. And here we are still sauteing the onions and the sofrito all together. As you see, it's starting to soften the onions. Now we got to add some salt. That's very important.
Oh, man.
Always add salt to taste. My grandma's an expert. Did you see that giant thing of salt? She's like, more or less, she never gets it wrong. On the left, we are making the chicken broth, and on the right, we are sauteing the onions. Now, the chicken broth has come to a boil. Ooh, nice. And we can put it aside. Okay, so
Ya
eso
vamos
se
a bajar.
derrite.
Ya
Lo
se puede
para.
bajar. Ajá.
Okay.
Oye, ven para acá. Sí, porque para la yuca eso yo tengo la trituradora, pero para esto no. Esto no importa que quede en trozos. Tú puedes usar las dos manos ahí, pero yo estoy usando una para que no salga el toro, ese toro ahí. No.
Clearly, we just chopped up some extra garlic to put it in there with the onions and the sofrito because garlic is delicious and, well, adding it just makes the dish just that much better. Saute it up.
Este es garlic. Esto va para es de uno. Entonces vamos a empezar, mira, una pieza, vamos a ir envolviéndola así. Ok. Tenemos una, ahí va así sucesivamente hasta que termine.
We are taking the raw chicken and we are making sure that the seasoning gets all over each piece. Okay, so you really want to embarrarlo, how they say in Spanish. You kind of want to dirty that chicken up with as much seasoning as possible, each piece, so that it really soaks up the flavor. Vamos a echarle unas cuantas hojas de laurel o bay leaf.
Vamos ya a ponerlo. Vamos a acabar de echar esto para cocinar, ponerlo a cocinar.
Un chorro de vino
Ya,
seco.
perfecto.
Y así lo dejamos cocinando.
Ya sí, ahora.
Next, we added some bay leaves and some more cooking wine. And now what you just saw was the chicken broth being poured into the cauldron. What we're going to do is we're going to let the chicken cook. This took about 45 minutes. Now we are cooking for 10 people, so it's going to take a little longer than cooking a smaller portion. But you let the chicken simmer in there on medium-high heat. Once you see that it's really kind of boiling up, you want to lower the heat so that the chicken doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan.
Entonces lo tapa, ¿no? Con que le eche un poquito más de eso, puedo poner en eso. Ya el pollo esté blando, cuando esté blando ya
Cocinado y blando.
Cocinado es la palabra, cocinado.
Ok.
Un poquito de no vaya a ser que se te pega. No se está pegando. Pide casi todo y mira cómo va como, ¿cómo se llama esto? Secando.
Ajá.
Pero no lo voy a echar más, voy a dejarlo así para que se penetre todo ese gusto entre el pollo. Ese es melusa.
Another precaution to make sure it doesn't stick is stir it every so often, maybe every 5 minutes or so. As you see, the juices are really boiling up and getting into the chicken. You don't want to add too much water, or not water, but chicken broth, because otherwise the flavors won't penetrate the chicken as well. You want to add enough so that it cooks, but not too much. What my grandma's putting in here is one of those pickled peppers, the red peppers, because it gives it a little extra flavor. You don't have to worry about chopping it up too much. It'll kind of just deteriorate in there, adding to the flavors of the chicken. The longer the time passes, the more you will see that the juices are drying up because it's getting soaked up into the chicken, which is delicious.
Yo acabo con la derecha. La tengo siempre estropeada. Si es para ti.
Menos gente, una nada más.
Un paquete, exacto. Esto es lo que le pega los plátanos maduros. El arroz con pollo va con plátano maduro.
As we wait for the chicken to cook, we're going to wash and dye the rice. Now, you will probably use less than 2 packets. You'll probably use 1 or half a packet, depending how many you're cooking for. Right now, we're just washing the rice.
La verdad que no estamos blanco. Porque no importa que quede agua, porque como es para arroz con pollo que quede. Entonces ahora vengo y le echo bijol.
To give that rice a nice yellow-orange color, we're either going to add bijol, which is a very Cuban thing, or Sazón Goya, which also dyes and adds a little bit of flavor to the rice. We actually put both in there. to give it a nice color. This is while the chicken is cooking so the rice can take on the color of the bijol or the sazón con azafrán. We're mixing it in there to make sure every grain is covered by that beautiful orange stuff. And we're just doing this raw, of course. That's the sazón.
No es por nada, pero pinta mejor. Bueno, tú si quieres, así ya.
Now that the chicken's cooked, which I said took about 45 minutes for us, we are taking it out from the pot in order to let it cool down so that we can later debone it.
Ay, Dios.
La tuya. ¿Aló? Mi vida.
Eso tiene que refrescarse. There's the chicken. Gotta leave it sitting on the counter, cooling down. So, in the meantime, we take the rice, which we have dyed, and we put it into the pot where the chicken was. So all that seasoning is going to be soaked into the rice. We're washing out the rice pot with a little bit of chicken broth to make sure we get every grain out of there. And now the rice is going to be cooked in this juice.
Ahora vamos a esperar, vamos a pagar aquí. Vamos a pagar ya las pastillas que ya se disolvieron.
Sí.
Para mantenerla ahí, pues necesitamos más agua.
We've made just a little more chicken broth in case the rice needs it, because you know the rice will expand. And you want to make the rice not dry, but not too watery. So time will pass. You have to make sure, see, that's too watery, but you see as the rice is cooking, it becomes less and less watery and more substancy. That is what your rice consistency should look like so that you can add the chicken. Ahora lo estás deshuesando y sacándole la grasa, ¿verdad?
Sí, la piel. Eso no es grasa, es la piel y los huesos.
Deboning the chicken, well, as I just said, you take out the bones, deboning, duh. And you also want to take out the fat from the chicken. You don't need that for the arroz con pollo. It's good to cook the chicken in that fat because it gives it a lot more flavor. But what you're left with after the bones and the fat are off are these tiny pieces of chicken. Muy rápido. Yo ya está. Está bien, está bien.
Con silla de ruedas.
¿Cómo se llama? Piti piti.
Oye,
Pitipoa.
Pitipoa.
Las pitipoa. We're laughing over the Cuban word for peas, which is pitipoa. Has a nice ring to it. In traditional Spanish, though, it's called guisantes. Now we're mixing the peas into the rice. As you see, the consistency, as my grandfather calls it, is a la chorrera, which means it's, you know, kind of juicy rice. We're adding the chicken in there so that we can mix it all up. That's the chicken that we just deboned. Putting it in there, and look how pretty it looks so far. Yes. Now, after we add the chicken, we're going to cut up some of that pickled red pepper, and we're going to use it to decorate the rice inside the cauldron. There we go. This is a very important part. I mean, the peppers are delicious, but it also makes the dish look very, very nice when people go to serve themselves. The meal, delicious meal, I should say.
Yeah.
Arroz con pollo a la chorrera en español.
Ahora sí.
En inglés creo que es asopado.
Thanks, Grandpa, for clarifying arroz con pollo a la chorrera. Beautifully paired with fried plantains. So freaking yummy, which I'll tell you about like now. So, I'm doing the taste test now of the arroz con pollo. And obviously I knew that it was going to be amazing. And it is. I personally like peppers, so I put a little bit extra on my plate. And what you see here are called fried plantains, which I will teach you to do this a different day. But it's a perfect pairing for arroz con pollo. Try it. Hello. Thanks, Mom.
Sí. Tú no me retratas a mí, tú retratas la comida, pero la vejeza de cerca no me retrate a mí. Yo te eché estos molos para cuando vayas a arreglar el plato, ponerlos enteros para que se vea bonito.
Ah, bueno, ok. Sí.
Como se va a ripiar,
Ajá.
entonces los muslitos lucen bonitos, le ponen uno, lo que
Sí. Es sangre o sofrito.
yo no toco el sofrito, no joder. Está muy pegado.
¿Ahí?
Sí. Esa era del diablo vivo. Mejor que tú ibas que te entrenes.
Yo, profesional.
Ya estoy acostumbrada.